I think there's a lot of misinformation recently about DEI or diversity, equity, and inclusion and the programs associated. First of all, they're not that big.
No.
They don't cost that much money. They're not the focus of most people in the military on their everyday lives. So this notion that we're not focused on lethality is just a bunch of bullshit. What do these programs do? When I was in my first squadron, I was one of the only women in the squadron, and we had aircrew training. And every other slide in aircrew training, whether it was on a weapon system or on part of the jet, the maintenance of the jet or any of that stuff, every other slide was a naked woman. Okay? Now, you may think that's great.
No.
Okay?
Awful.
But at that
Just couldn't
time,
believe it.
it created a pretty interesting environment for me in a fighter squadron. I got through it. No big deal. All right. I didn't like cry or anything like that, but it was there. All right. Now, fast forward 4 or 5 years, I came back, second squadron. All that stuff was gone. Why? Well, women had risen in the ranks. The guys that were now in charge were my peers, okay, from or closer to my rank, and they had served with women. And they knew this stuff was completely unprofessional. And guess what happened? Did the planes fall out of the sky? Did they turn pink? No. The bombs still hit the target on time. And the reason that I bring that up is because the entire culture changed just a little bit to make it better for women. And so when I think about diversity and equity and inclusion programs, it's simply the idea of presenting some of these things to maybe an audience that isn't aware that certain things are happening in their culture that could then influence other people. That's what this is. And it's really not that big of a deal.
In the B-1 fighter squadrons, we had so many women pilots and WISOs, weapon systems officers, offensive system officers, and DISOs, defensive system officers. But there was still that sort of weird issue. And I think what you're saying is that we need to keep pushing forward to make sure everybody's inclusive, especially in a warfighting environment. If you're talking DEI specifically, I know we can talk on so much else, but if you're going to separate people in a warfighting environment, I think it's a morale issue. I think it's an immoral issue, but really I would say it's a human issue. And I think what you're saying, Amy, and what you went through, I think everybody needs to know. And I think that's why we're doing this show, Truth in the Barrel, is because people can know actually how it is, not what's being presented by a bunch of disinformation, grifter, and bullshit artists.
Yeah, it's just about building a culture of professionalism. That's what it is. And a culture of professionalism makes you a better, more lethal warfighter.
Professionalism.
Pete Hegseth, go back to school.
He needs to, because professionalism and DEI are not mutually exclusive.
Yeah. Cheers.